I was around 13 years old, and I lived with my grandparents. They were out of state for their anniversary, and I was allowed to have a friend over for the weekend. They trusted me enough to not give me a babysitter or anything either, which was very cool of them. I lived in the mountains, and our closest neighbor was more than a mile away, so I guess they assumed nothing too bad could happen. My friend and I were playing Guitar Hero at about midnight. When we heard noises from the kitchen, we thought it was just my cats making noise, so we ignored it. A couple minutes go by, and it got louder. Sounded like jars clanking and silverware. We both walked into the hallway and could see that there was someone in the kitchen. A shadow figure of a man stood in front of my fridge. We looked at each other, not sure what to do. To get to the phone, I would have to walk right by him. No way he wouldn't have seen me. My stupid friend just decided to speak up. "Hey, who are you?" She said it so calmly, which was surprising, considering I was scared as shit. The guy dropped a bunch of shit and ran out of the house super quick. We ran to get the phone and called 911. Turns out, the dude was making a sandwich with stuff in my fridge. I want to know who he was and how he found my house. The cops never figured out who he was, and my grandparents came home that night. Some friends and I were staying at another friend's house. We were all about 14. I'm a girl, for context. One of my friends, I'll call her Steph, was always very open to the fact that she thought I was smoking hot. I felt a bit weirded out sometimes, because I wasn't sure if she was being serious or not. I didn't mind whether or not she liked me, but sometimes it'd get a little too much, and she'd say things like, "Oh, the things I do to you." So at this sleepover, our other friends and I began to play a chasing game. It started off as a bit of fun, but soon, Steph started to get rough and would tackle me to the ground and pin me there. I was genuinely a little bit scared, and the other girls started to notice that it was a little bit too close for comfort too. So we did what we had to do. We each grabbed one of Steph's limbs and proceeded to tie her arms behind her back and her legs together. It took a good 20 minutes because Steph is very strong and quite persistent. Eventually, we managed to keep her down, and we proceeded to watch television. That is until somehow Steph managed to escape. This was like horror film stuff. We all ran upstairs. The 3 other girls made it to a bedroom, and I ran to the bathroom. I locked myself inside, and Steph started banging on the door. I don't know how long I was in there for, but it started to get bright, and Steph was outside the whole time, waiting for me to come out. I slept in the bathtub that night. I'm staying at my friend Amy's house with 2 other friends. Her mom is out at a bar. The sleepover is going great until Amy's mom comes home totally drunk. I mean really drunk. Amy gets really angry because this isn't the first time this happens, and she runs out of the house. Keeping in mind it's about 4 a.m. I bring the one friend upstairs whilst the other goes to find Amy. I hear voices downstairs, and I realize Amy's mom has company. It's a drunk male companion. Wonderful. I call a taxi to bring her male friend home. This is when Amy's mom starts going crazy. She's shouting at me, so I run upstairs and lock the door. The taxi arrives and takes the guy. Amy's mom then realizes Amy is missing and starts to blame me. She starts hitting the bedroom door and telling me to let her in. She is convinced I have lost Amy. I open the door to leave with my friend, and Amy's mom pins me against the wall. At this stage, being the reserved and polite girl I am, I proceed to tell Amy's mom that it is her fault Amy is missing and that she is a terrible mother figure. My friend and I leave, and we run home to my house as fast as possible. We find Amy and my other friend, and we all stay at my house that night. The next morning at 7 a.m., Amy's mom starts banging on my door looking for Amy. She literally can't remember what she had done the few hours previous. I still haven't spoken to her mom since that day, and it's been 6 years. When I was a child, I lived on a street with a haunted house. A large and happy family had lived in the house until a night when one of the children was playing with matches. The youngest boy of the family dropped a lit match on his bed, but was too scared to call out for help. The boy was burned alive under his covers. His parents and 2 sisters died with him in the flames. One evening during a sleepover, my friends and I took turns trying to scare each other with ghost stories. It was approaching midnight and, unable to scare each other, we thought it would be fun to go to the haunted house in the dark. The smell of smoke hung in the air, and thin clouds of ash were being blown in the breeze. But then we realized there was no breeze. Shapes began to form in the clouds of ash, and gray hands reached out from the shapes. As we turned to run, screams rose up out of the ashes. "Help us! We're burning!" they cried. We started to run, thinking that as soon as we were clear of the house we would be safe. But the ash shapes and screams followed us. As we neared my home, the smell of burning was almost overwhelming, and as we reached my door, I glanced over my shoulder to see a hand reaching for me. We piled through my front door, slamming it behind us, and ran up the stairs to my room, slamming that door tight too. None of us expected to sleep, but the fear had exhausted us and we fell into a deep slumber. The next morning, in the daylight, we were all much braver. During breakfast, we talked about what happened and came to the conclusion our imaginations had taken over. We decided to walk back to the house in the daylight. I opened my front door and my mouth dropped in a silent scream. There, on the door, were 2 large round scorches high on the door, like someone had pounded on it with burning hands. Lower down, there were 2 smaller sets of handprints, as if children with burning hands had pushed against it. Finally, near the bottom of the door was a tiny set of burnt handprints, as if the youngest little boy had tried in vain to push open the door and get help for his family. I was invited to a birthday sleepover party for a kid in my class when I was in 3rd grade. I barely knew the kid, but my mom said it would be nice if I went because he didn't have many friends. I was about to find out why. When I arrived to the house, the enclosed front porch was full of feces. To be honest, I'm not sure it was dog or human, although there were about 5 or 6 dogs wandering around. The smell immediately made me sick, and I asked the kid's mother if she could call my mom to come pick me up because I felt sick. She refused and said, "I'm not going to do that. You just got here. That would be ridiculous." The next thing I know, me and the other kids, the birthday boy, another friend, and birthday boy's brother, are sitting on the floor of the kitchen eating pizza. We were required to finish 3 large pizzas because the mom spent all day making them. It was immediately followed by cake and ice cream. Afterwards, I again asked the kid's mom if she would call my mom to pick me up. She refused. We were then told to go outside to sled while she watched movies, and we were not allowed to come back in until about 11 p.m. When we finally came back inside, my stomach was quite upset about being force-fed pizza and sweets, followed by being repeatedly sent down a large hill in the dark. When I proceeded to throw up in the house's only toilet, I was yelled at for messing up the mother's night and throwing up in her toilet. She then called my mother to come pick me up. At midnight,